Yeah. All right. So Jim, I'm giving you the harder thing this
Yeah,
time.
fuck.
Going back to one of our favorite reoccurring bits, overrated, underrated. And for those of you who don't know, what we like to do is take a topic, a game, whatever the case may be. Each one of us takes a position that's overrated or underrated. It has no bearing on our actual opinions of the game, but or the subject, and we just try to counter argue each other. So in this one, Jim, you are overrated and I am underrated, and we are talking about Doom still. And when I say Doom, I don't mean the series, just mean the first game. So Jim, I'm going to let you get started and tell me, how is Doom overrated? Because we know you hate this game.
Well, Bri, I mean, it's an okay game. It's all right. But what did Doom really do besides throwing monsters that Wolfenstein 3D didn't do before it? It's not like you can dynamically aim up and down in it. You're still just going through some narrowish corridors. All right, maybe it opens up a little. It opens up a tiny bit. But you're still going through corridors. You're still just mowing down things. It's not scary. It's still, oh, I gotta find a stupid fucking key so I can get through the door and get through the next part of the level. It's stuff that it's all been done before. Sure, it's been polished. I'm not gonna say you're polishing a turd because Wolfenstein 3D was certainly no turd, but it laid the groundwork for everything that Doom did and that Doom tried to do a little more. Now let's talk about some more of the things that people love so much about Doom, and let's go into the soundtrack. Sure, the soundtrack's great, but that's because all the tracks are ripoffs of already established music. So all the tracks that you love are all ripoffs of Metallica and Slayer and I think some Megadeth and shit like that. So it's easy to make a great soundtrack when you don't have to put any real work into it. And then you even get to other series like, say, Quake that I just talked about. Quake 2, scarier than Doom ever was. Quake 1, a more mythical, kind of added more different gameplay elements, added even, I think it added magic and shit like that. It's been forever since I played it, and not only that, but you can aim up and down. You can aim all over. You can actually fully, truly aim. I would almost even say that for setting and graphics and gameplay, even the Marathon series built on better to the Wolfenstein 3D idea than Doom ever did. Doom was just the one that, kids and nerdy edgelords at the time could go, oh man, this is based in hell and it's so gory. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And, if you want to be a neckbeard nerd in the 90s, then be the neckbeard nerd in the 90s that you want to be. But just don't try and sit here and say that Doom really did anything all that special. Sure, as an overall package, it's good. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, what really did it do?
Okay. Are you done?
I'll stop there.
All right. So, Jim, before I get started, do I need to remind you to not interrupt and be a goddamn gentleman?
No, I will be a gentleman. I will let you say your piece.
All right. And keep in mind, Jim, there will be questions thrown out there. They're rhetorical. Okay?
Okay.
So, Doom, you brought up a lot of great points. It was, how would you call it? You basically said it was a Wolfenstein clone, essentially.
Well, I mean, it was made by the same people.
Yep. So, no one can deny Wolfenstein came out first and kind of laid the groundwork for what Doom is. But I'll go ahead and say, when people think of what was the first car that was ever made, pretty much no one out there is going to tell you that was the car created by Carl Benz. No, everyone's going to think the Ford Model T. You know why? Because he took what some people might have already created, perfected it, mass-produced it, and made it what it is. And the history, in most common people's mind, when you're not just Googling it, no one knows Carl Benz. And I give it another 15, 20 years, and shit, probably even today with generations today, people know Doom. A lot of people don't know Wolfenstein, even though they're trying to make a comeback and they've made new games. Not taking anything away from Wolfenstein, but Doom just perfected and essentially, you could argue, is the grandfather of the first-person shooter and what we've come to love as a first-person shooter genre. So, number one, being a game that kind of like Super Mario Brothers did for platforming, and it's not taking away from the Atari platformers, but this did this for first-person shooter. So you defined a whole genre. So check that off as one of the reasons. You talked about the soundtrack, and you brought up another really good point. The soundtrack did use music from heavy metal bands of the time, but you know what? Why fuck with perfection and create something like you would hear on the Sega Genesis? Like, you don't want to do that. So you take something really good and you fit it to your game appropriately. Just like a series, and there's no doubt you can deny this, Jim. You love the Star Wars series. You might not love every single episode, but you love that series. And you know it's a really great movie. But that did nothing original. It took the Seven Samurai movie, it took stories from the Bible, it took Westerns, and it just combined them all into one space story. If you really look at all the things that were presented there, they've been done before, but they perfected it. And everyone remembers Star Wars and doesn't care that it's an amalgamation of things previously done. You know why? Because it was given to us in a package we can appreciate, much like Doom and that soundtrack. And you talked about the guns. For a guy like you, who I would refer to as pretty easily a simpleton, you like things very simple. You know, you like watching plants grow on your video games. Why you do this, I have no idea. So you should appreciate the aiming mechanic of not aiming up and down. In fact, just like you love GoldenEye when you don't have to aim. Obviously, everyone knows GoldenEye is better when you don't have to aim properly, and that's the way you prefer it, because it's simple and it keeps the action going. Who wants to stop and aim all over the place, especially on those older games, where it wasn't perfected till many systems later, because they knew what they were working with, and they didn't want to fuck with technology that wasn't available to them. So it's debatable to say they perfected the control scheme for a genre they created in the FPS. And I'm not even getting to the fact that you just had arguably one of the goriest games of the time in a time when, you know, all these other games were trying to come out and be the goriest. People knew Doom. And the weapons that were available to you, the monsters you were fighting, they all looked amazing. So there is no doubt this game is underrated. And let's also throw out there, Jim, how can a game that you can beat in 8 seconds, at least the first level, possibly be underrated? People are going to spend 20 years trying to break records for a game. I think there's no chance that game's overrated. But you tell me.
It is.
All right, so I won that one.
God damn.
So for those of you, when you watch the segment, obviously Jim does not think this game is overrated. But, you know, that's the point of this argument.
Right. It's another one where it's like, it's obviously not overrated, but it's another one of those things where it's like, how do you possibly say it's underrated with how fucking loved it is? So
yeah, it is tough to always call that underrated. But Jim, did you like my one little dig, my few digs I had again there for you?
Oh, you're gonna see what I did when you put this video together.
Which one pissed you off more when I called
it was the Genesis one. Of course, it was the Genesis one. It's always the Genesis one.
I had to throw it out there, Jim. I just had to. So, let us know if you're someone out there. I think most of you will probably say underrated, but if you truly think it's overrated, I'd love to hear why. And don't just say because if you generally hate the genre and everything, then of course you'll think it. But I would love to hear reasons why you would find Doom overrated.